Hello and welcome. Let's talk about 600 trillion system nobody talks about. How global finance actually runs the world. And we spend all our time arguing about who has the most aircraft carriers or who's winning the latest border skirmish. But we are looking at the wrong map. There is 600 trillion, yes, trillion with a T. You have heard it right. Financial plumbing system. I would call it plumbing system that actually dictates who eats, who stays in the dark, and which countries simply cease to function. Yes, you have heard it right. If you are sitting in Chicago or London or in Washington, D.C. right now, you think your bank account is just a digital number. While it is not, it is a permission slip, and the people who hold the eraser, they have just started using it in so many different ways that quietly keep you up at night. So I have spent 20 years in newsrooms and research halls watching how the real decisions are made behind closed doors. The kind of stuff that never quite makes the evening broadcast or the headlines. I'm here to help you see the world as it actually is, not how it is marketed to us. This is In Focus with Dr. Adeel. Think about your credit card again for a second. If the bank decides to freeze it today, you cannot buy groceries. You cannot put gas in your car. You are effectively erased from economy. Yes, you have heard it right. Now imagine for a second that it is happening to an entire nation, not because they ran out of money or they are bankrupt, but because the plumbing they used to move that money was simply turned off. Most of us have heard about the IMF or World Bank. We all have heard about it. But let me ask you, have you ever heard of the BIS or BIS, the Bank for International Settlements? Or have you ever heard about SWIFT? These are not just boring acronyms for accountants. They are the central nervous system of our planet. Actually, let me back up a little bit because if I do not give you the context here, the next part isn't going to land for you easily. For 80 years, the US dollar hasn't just been a currency, it's been the operating system. If you are a company in Ohio trying to sell parts to a factory in Mumbai or Munich, that money almost certainly passes through a US bank. It is called dollar clearing. And because every single one of those transactions touch American soil. So what happens? The US government effectively has a kill switch for global trade. But here is the shift. For decades, that switch was a deterrent, but now it's a primary weapon. And as we are seeing right now, when you use a weapon too often, people start building armor against it. Let's look at the armor as well. Or rather, let's look at what happens when you do not have it. Look at Iran. For years, they were cut off from SWIFT, the messaging system that tells banks where to send money. It's like trying to run a modern city without an internet connection. Inflation didn't just rise, it exploded, and families who had saved for decades saw their life's work evaporate in months because they were locked out of the plumbing. But then came the 2022, the big one, when West froze 300 billions of Russia's central bank reserves. The world stopped and stared. Now, regardless of how you feel about the conflict itself, and we can have that debate in a separate vlog, the mechanics of this are what matters. Central bank reserves are supposed to be very sacred. They are the ultimate rainy day funds for any country. But freezing them, the US and EU sent a message to every other country. Your savings are only yours as long as we agree with your foreign policy. Now, I want you to really sit with this idea because what I'm about to tell you changes how you read the news for the rest of your life. For 80 years, A central bank's foreign reserve was seen as a sacred, untouchable saving account for any country. If you are a leader in Brasilia, New Delhi, or Beijing, you just watch the words referee seize the ball and go home because they did not like how the game was being played. The question, are we next, isn't a paranoia. It's a fiduciary responsibility if your national wealth is held in a system that can be turned off with one memo from Washington. Do you actually own that wealth? Is it yours? Most people will give you very superficial and surface read about that the dollar is too strong to fail because there is no immediate replacement. And honestly, it sounds convincing. It's convincing until you look at the plumbing system we are talking about. And that plumbing system is mBridge. And probably in my previous vlog, I talked about the mBridge. So this isn't just a fancy app like any other app. So it's a multi-central bank digital currency platform being built right under the nose of the BIS. Think of this way, if the current system is a highway where every car must pass through a US controlled toll booth, mBridge is a fleet of drones flying over the fence. It uses distributed ledger technology to settle trades in seconds, bypassing the correspondent banking system entirely. For the first time since 1944, we are seeing the construction of a financial dark fiber network, a parallel set of pipelines designed specifically to be invisible to West. We are not just talking about a few countries having meetings in nice hotels. We are seeing a shift from global cooperation to transactional realism. When China and Brazil agree to trade in their own currencies, or when India uses a non-dollar link to buy energy, they are not just trying to replace the dollar. What they are doing, they are building a firebreak. They are ensuring that the next time a kill switch is flipped in the West, their lights stay on. This is the $600 trillion system starting to crack, and it is happening from the inside out. Think about the 2008 financial crisis for a moment. Back then, the worry was that banks are too big to fail. Today, the fear among global leaders is that the system itself is too centralized to trust. So we are seeing a correspondent banking retreat where Western banks are pulling out of emerging markets, leaving a vacuum. And guess who's filling it? The yuan is now the most used currency for cross-border transactions in China, overtaking the dollar for the first time. Actually, hold on. I need to be very careful here. I'm not saying that dollar dies tomorrow. That's a very sensational headline. You will see on cable news often such kind of headlines. But I'm saying is that the financial iron curtain is being drawn. On one side, you have the traditional Western system, and on the other, a desperate, fast-tracked digital infrastructure designed specifically to be sanction-proof. But there is a darker side to this fragmentation that nobody is talking about. And once you see it, you realize this isn't just about money, it's about the very definition of sovereignty. Here is the part that changes everything. We always thought of globalization as this irreversible force that would bring us together. Trade would prevent wars, right? But we have invented that. We have turned the tools of togetherness, our banks, our communication wires, our shared currency, into the front line of war. When we weaponize the plumbing, we do not just hurt governments. We hurt the grandfather in Caracas who cannot get his pension because the bank won't process the wire. We just hurt the small business owner in any developing nation who cannot import medicines. Why? Because the correspondent bank in New York decides that his country was too high risk. So we are moving away from a world of global rules toward a world of regional fortresses. This 600 trillion system is being partitioned. It's the end of the neutral money era. If you live in the West, your cost of living, your gas prices, your mortgage rates has been subsidized for decades by the fact that everyone had to use your system. If that must use status disappears, the economic shock to average American household will be more permanent than any recession you have ever seen in your lifetime. Now, I want you to really lean in here because this is the part that most people, even the ones following the headlines, completely miss. We have always been told that globalization was a safety net. The idea was simple. If we are all buying and selling from each other using the same bank and the same currency, war becomes too expensive. It was supposed to be the ultimate deterrent. But here is the twist now. The paradigm shift that is currently rattling the foundation of every major capital from Washington to Riyadh. We have just used the financial system to trade. We have turned the system itself into the front line. When you weaponize a bank account, you are not just targeting a government, you are fundamentally changing what it means to live in a modern society. Think about this. We are moving from world of global rules where everyone theoretically played by the same manual to world of regional fortresses. For a viewer in the US or the EU, this might feel like high level stuff that doesn't affect your morning coffee. But for 40 years, the West has enjoyed a reserve currency subsidy, essentially because the world had to use your pipelines. Your debt was cheaper, your prices were lower, and your influence was absolute. So, if those parallel pipes like mBridge or the BRICS systems actually take hold, that subsidy vanishes. So, we are talking about a permanent shift in the cost of living for average family in Ohio or Ontario. It's not just about who has the power, it's about who pays the price when the world's shared system splits in two. I'm not telling you this to be an alarmist. The dollar isn't going to vanish tomorrow. And the US banking system is still the most liquid on the planet. But the monopoly is over. The unseen system is finally becoming visible because it is under immense pressure. We have to ask ourselves an honest and maybe slightly uncomfortable question here. Can a globalized world actually function if we no longer trust the person on the other end of the wire? Or are we heading towards a future where money is no longer neutral but a political badge of honor? I want you to keep an eye on the plumbing. The next time you see a headline about sanctions or new trade blocks, because the real history of 21st century isn't being written in treaty rooms, it's being written in the code of system that moves $600 trillion a year. The single biggest takeaway today is this: power in the modern world isn't just about who has the most tanks. It is about who owns the ledger. And the ledger is currently being rewritten. If this changed the way you read news this week, subscribe this channel, because what's coming in the next few episodes is going to go even deeper into the questions nobody else is asking you loud yet. So you really cannot afford to miss where the story goes next. I'm Dr. Adeel. Thank you for being here. I'll see you in the next episode. Thank you very much.